first of all, I want to just talk a little bit about what time of the day is good for brainwave entrainment and why we would want to work different brainwaves. In the morning, we want to get your day started. Some of you heard me say the worst thing you can do is wake up to an alarm clock. If you're waking up to an alarm clock today, stop. Set something that wakes you up to beautiful music. As soon as you hear that alarm clock, your liver just pumped 25 grams of sugar into your bloodstream. And the average person hits the snooze button 3 times. You're sitting in each other's energy right now. That energy field can expand up to 18 feet away. That's what changes first. And when you down-regulate your nervous system, Virginia Hunt from UCLA proved that your energy field expands. So it's like cleaning your energy field. So think of every time you do a good meditation, you're cleaning your field. Your brain needs energy. After 1 session of BrainTap, it went up to 10. After 2 sessions of BrainTap, it went to 21 in the same day. Because the cells of your body love energy, light energy. It's creating vasodilation, blood flow, and circulation. This doesn't happen with any other device I know of because we're changing brainwave frequencies with light. I'm Dr. Patrick Porter. I'm the inventor of BrainTap. And just so you know, my beginnings, I started doing this when I was 12 years old because my dad was a Silva instructor. If you ever heard the Silva method, we grew up with that. My dad was a very gifted alcoholic, and the church came over and said, Michael, we're going to teach you how to relax. He's like, what are you talking about? I can't relax. But that night he went to a one-night workshop, relaxed, and never drank again because he realized he was drinking to try to relax. Didn't work very well. He was very bad at it. But he said, if I'm going to do it, the rest of the kids are going to do it. So every night we meditated. And in my book, Awaken the Genius, I've written 9 books. But that first book, I talk about how I believe everyone is a genius. Because I was held back in 2nd grade and told I had learning disabilities and all of these things. But what I really had was I was an artist trapped in a body going to school, and I would rather just draw and do different things. But as soon as I realized that I could engage that left hemisphere, that logical brain, I became an honor roll student and developed pretty close to a photographic memory. So it's all about, everybody has a photographic memory, by the way. It's a recall that's the problem, the recall of information. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you what I've learned over the last 40 years as far as brainwave entrainment and what I think every biohacker should do to increase their effectiveness of any technology you're using right now. If you're missing out on the brain part of it, I don't care what you're doing, you're not going to get the match results. Every speaker on the stage out there is using BrainTap. There's no one that isn't. So they're using it because they can measure the results and they know they're getting a benefit. About 75% of the people here, Dave does ask like he usually does, you'll see them raise their hand because they know that they're going to get results. And I'm going to talk about that. When I talk about peak mental performance, how many people would agree if you get a great night's sleep, you do better that next day, right? So the number one thing BrainTap does is help you sleep better. And it doesn't matter when you do the session, that's the key. So I'm going to talk about why that is. And I'm going to talk about why there's different brainwave entrainment for different times of the day. One brainwave entrainment is not the best. Like the things that are on YouTube, they're not the best because they've never been studied. If you listen to the same brainwave entrainment for more than 3 times in a row, you've lost all effectiveness. We've done it in the lab, we know. Your brain's not going to follow it anymore. Most of you have known somebody who lives next to like a paper mill and you go, how can you live here? Or they live next to a train track and how can you live here with the trains going by or an airport? And they go, I don't hear the planes, I don't hear the trains, I don't smell because our brain has a capacity to be a filter. It filters out the things that we know are not going to cause us any harm. The same thing's true with brainwave entrainment. That's why we have to produce new sessions. That's what somebody says, why do you have 2,000 sessions? Because you need to have a variety of different exposures to different algorithms so that your brain gets trained. It's like you can't go to the gym every day and do the same physical workout. You can't go to your brain and do the same mental workout. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So first of all, I want to just talk a little bit about what time of the day is good for brainwave entrainment and why we would want to work different brainwaves. We talked a little bit about this for some of you that were in the room earlier. So in the morning, we want to get your day started. Some of you heard me say the worst thing you can do is wake up to an alarm clock. If you're waking up to an alarm clock today, stop. Set something that wakes you up to beautiful music, something that helps you celebrate the day, because as soon as you hear that alarm clock, your liver just pumped 25 grams of sugar into your bloodstream. And the average person hits the snooze button 3 times. So they just ate 2 candy bars before they got out of bed. So what happens when sugar enters the system? We can only have 1 tablespoon of sugar in our bloodstream at any one time. So our body has got to have a cascade of different activities. It puts you into sympathetic drive at that moment. You're in fight or flight the moment you get up. So the alarm clock is not the way to go. We actually believe you should be listening to what's called SMR training. Now, what's SMR? SMR is a brainwave between alpha and beta. Beta is your reactionary mind. I'm going to go more into detail in a little bit about that, but think about, there's no bad brainwave. Think of it like different activities that when you're in beta, that's what we need when we drive, when we work out, when we're taking action. If we didn't have beta, we wouldn't be able to navigate. But if we don't have alpha, we can't think. Because beta is just reactionary. It's kind of like you're just in reactionary mode. And when you're super stressed out, that's why you're in high beta, and you can snap at people, and you wish you could take that back and have a little bit of space between what you said and what you thought. So that's why the more alpha you have, the more problem solving you can be. But between those two, there's a brainwave called SMR. When we did our studies with dementia, which there's a book called Saving Your Brain, where we took every person in our dementia study off dementia in less than 6 weeks by doing exactly what I'm going to teach you here. 3 times a day within 6 weeks. It's happened now over 100 times in studies at Seminole College. We're going to publish that report when we get 250 people. So in every person, it's about...
How long do you expect that to be roughly? Within a year, 2 years?
Yeah, because they're not really a university that does research, and they have a research lab. Their golf team actually is the national champs 4 years in a row. They've been using BrainTap. So they're always trying to find different ways to use the lab for different things. So if they have somebody that has dementia at the school, they put them through the protocol.
So it could be a while.
Yeah. I mean, we still have the study is published right now. You go to our website and see the pilot study and what we did. But it's so simple. And there's a saying you might hear me say, if you follow me, it's spirit is simple, man is complex. Everybody wants to have a really complex problem. So I want to find the simplest solution for the least amount of money that you can do daily. You can't change your brain by doing one thing. And I'm just going to say this because what you're asking. We were at a medical conference, and I'm going to show you one of the brains from the medical conference here in just a minute. It's terrible. And we didn't see a brain over 30%. I can tell you at this conference, we see our best brains. The people here doing biohacking, they have the best brains. But I didn't see a brain over 30% functioning. And then I had a doctor come up and he says, well, if I get this, do I have to do this the rest of my life? And I said, not if you live on Gilligan's Island and your only choice is, Marianne or Ginger. That's a fairyland. I said, have you ever told somebody, take this pill, you got to take it the rest of your life? Oh yeah, there's pills I have to take the rest of my life. I said, that's hogwash. Your nervous system changes every 72 hours, but meditation is your medication. You need to do that every day. You need to somehow keep regulating your nervous system. If not, the world will regulate your nervous system. And the world right now doesn't want us to have a regulated nervous system. It wants us to be in a state of terror and stress and anxiety. It seems so counterintuitive, but that's the powers that be, that's what they want to do. So this brainwave, by the way, this SMR, if you don't trigger that first thing in the morning, your cortisol trough gets off track. You'll need coffee all day long. Don't drink coffee first thing in the morning. Drink coffee at about 10 o'clock or at least 2 hours after you wake up. You want to have your own body's norepinephrine, cortisol, and dopamine triggering your wake-up call. I don't care how much butter you put in it. That doesn't matter. Your brain, you have the greatest pharmacy on earth between your ears. I love coffee, but I don't drink it first thing in the morning. Some days I forget to drink it. If you need that coffee, you don't need the coffee. Figure out what's going on, because nobody has a coffee shortage. But if you enjoy coffee, you want to use it to get some energy, that's fine, but do it at the right time.
My wife doesn't like that statement.
Oh, yes.
I'm getting your eyebrow.
Right.
Thanks very much.
Anything, there's a saying in NLP when I was taking the training back in the 80s, and they were rock climbers. So keep this in mind. If you can, you can't. If you can't, you must. That's the way a rock climber thinks. So that's really a lot of how biohackers think, right? They do a lot of crazy stuff to get their body going.
Did you not say earlier, though, to not drink after 10 o'clock?
Yeah. You don't want to drink anything actually 2 hours before sleep if you really want to get good sleep. Yeah, because your body is either digesting.
10 a.m. on the coffee.
Yeah, 10 a.m. on the coffee. Yeah. That's best, but at least 2 hours after you wake up. In the daytime now, I'm going to show you a study in just a minute we did with Peak Performance study where we took 1%ers. These were the top 1% at Google and Microsoft, You know, a couple years ago when they had the mass exodus, everybody was leaving. They contacted me, Julie Arndt did, and said, hey, what can we do about these people? They're getting burnout. Well, they weren't getting burnout when they were in there before COVID, but they're getting burnout afterwards because it was like taking that boiling water that you put the frog in Psychology 101 where they jump right back out. They didn't want to get back in the pressure cooker anymore. So I said, we got to have them do a session at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They said, they're never going to do it. We showed them if they took a 20-minute break, they got 23% more work done during the day. So by taking a 20-minute break, they actually got 0.25% more work done. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. So in the middle of the day, what's important is your temperature drops 2 degrees every day at 2 o'clock, every person on earth. Now, when you're younger, you don't even notice it because you have all this energy and everything. And maybe some of you biohackers might not feel it either, but the reality is that your body is recycling. Women aren't the only ones that have cycles. Everybody who has a body cycles. And it's being broadcast by our sun. Our sun is telling our body what to do. At 2 o'clock, it's telling us to take a nap. But we don't take naps. We're too busy being busy. So you got to do an afternoon session. In the evening, after all of this, most people think they can do everything to do a sleep protocol. Well, your sleep protocol started in the morning. We've done sleep studies where we just did the morning session, it improved it. We did sleep studies where we just did the afternoon session, it improved it. And we did sleep studies where we do in the evening. I can tell you right now, and I love Marcola, but turning off your cell phone isn't the answer because 99% of the people are never going to turn off their cell phone. I remember a few years back at the conference, he goes, I'm going to tell you how to use your cell phone. Take it out, turn it off. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of having a cell phone, right? But what you can do is we have technology that can do these things, that can help you. Now you can be scared of them or you can use them. The thing is that our body, every cell of your body right now as we're sitting in this room is interpreting everything that's happening around us through something called mirror neurons. Every cell has it. It's all being fed into the brain and the brain is feeding it back through the body. And it's telling us, is this a safe place for me? Is this dangerous for me? And it's measuring everything. I mean everything. From the thoughts you think, to the people sitting around you, to the smells you're having, everything about you is changing every 40 seconds based on biophotic exchange. So if we can down-regulate, if you're in sympathetic drive, it's going to be the filter in which everything is changed by, which means you're going to down-regulate your gene expression. You're going to show up as less of who you are than more. Now this is the study I was talking about. This is on the app for those of you that have the BrainTap. It's the Peak Performance Mindset series. This group, again, they were not going to take 20 minutes off. They were too busy being busy. They got paid. People think all this great stuff about Google, that you got slides and they serve you wine. But if you get up from the desk, you get penalized. They don't get into that. So imagine you have all this wonderful stuff out there, but you got to keep typing because they measure how many keystrokes you have. Everything. So when we got them to take their 20-minute break, stress levels decreased 45%, depression, they didn't know they were clinically depressed.
High function.
Every one of them, high, number one, these were the top 1 producers because they were giving up their life in exchange for their work. You have to have that work-life balance. So when we did the depression score, when you're measuring somebody's depression score, you're measuring their whole life, not just how they're doing in business, how they're doing at home. It's the whole life. How is your whole life? And then their sleep quality improved 48%. They didn't do anything at night. They didn't change anything other than take a 20-minute break. 26% increase in performance, 41% more positive mindset. There's a whole study about this. It's been published. So you can read about this. And now when Julie Arndt does these peak performance trainings, everybody does BrainTap. It's just part of the protocol now.
How many people were in the study?
How many people were in the study?
Yeah.
Right now it's up to 75 people, but we published at 35.
When you say a 20-minute break, do you mean a 20-minute break to do nothing, or do you mean a 20-minute break to do BrainTap?
20-minute tape to do BrainTap. Yeah.
And that's it, you're saying they don't need it right before bed?
No.
Okay, just that
No.
one?
Right.
If
At
nothing
2
else?
p.m.
Right. What's that?
At 2 p.m. when the temperature drops.
Yeah, we try to get them. They didn't always do it at 2 p.m., but we actually can tell, and with our neurocheck, we can tell you when your biological lows are, and we tell you do them at those times. We actually have a device that tells you that. These are the universities that are doing studies right now as we're speaking. So I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying. This is all science. Take your beliefs on Sunday and do whatever you want to do with them. This is science. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. So one of the things that blew my mind that most people don't understand is in 1994, our NIH said that we have a biosphere. Now you might be wondering, how did they figure that out? They took a group of mice and they ran them through a maze. And then once the mice learned the maze so well, they started taking the brains of the mice apart, taking it out, until all the mice were running the maze with just brain stems. They didn't have brains anymore. They determined that the memories are no longer stored in the tissue of the brain, they're stored in the field. If it's true for mice, it's true for you. This is a transmitter and a receiver of information. The information is out here in the field. If my dad was here, he'd say, and he was sitting there, he'd say, would you mind if I sit in your aura? Because you're sitting in each other's energy right now. That energy field can expand up to 18 feet away. That's what changes first. And when you downregulate your nervous system, Virginia Hunt from UCLA proved that your energy field expands. So it's like cleaning your energy field. So think of every time you do a good meditation, you're cleaning your field. And if you don't clean it, it's like a garbage mess in there. You know, it's gonna keep stacking up. So just know that this is not a metaphysical concept anymore. You are light beings. It's been proven. You have a photic light system in the body. The number one underprescribed nutrient on earth is light. That's why you see so many light therapies down in the biohacking room. It's going to upregulate who you are. This is a brain of a normal one of our people that come into the clinic. That's out of 100. Your brain needs energy. After one session of BrainTap, it went up to 10. After 2 sessions of BrainTap, it went to 21 in the same day. Because the cells of your body love energy, light energy. It's creating vasodilation, blood flow, and circulation. This doesn't happen with any other device I know of because we're changing brainwave frequencies with light. Light therapy itself can increase the energy, but it can't change the brainwaves. So we mirrored the two together. So there are some light helmets that can do it too now. So when we think about stress, during COVID they did a study and they can measure your light frequency. Everyone in this room is transmitting 8-10 nanometer light. Does that sound familiar to anybody? How many have you heard 8-10 nanometer light's healing, right? Each one of you is broadcasting that. And that's what's communicating with the cells of your body. Now, they proved that if you look at life as a series of threats, you actually produce 200 times less light energy. So imagine you want to call across the country, but you have 200 times less energy. It's going to go down through the spine, the keyboard of the brain. It's going to broadcast less energy, so the cells are going to act differently than if you're on full power. If you look at life as a challenge, hey, you wake up, oh wow, how's today going to be? I'm going to conquer the day. Your body actually upregulates. They now know back in when they did the, and I think it might be it'll be a slide here in just a second. We'll go through it. These are the two brain waves we need to upregulate, alpha and theta. If I was to measure everyone in this room before you started biohacking, I'm not sure today because, like I said, this is the greatest group we ever measure with the brain because you can change the brain through nutrition and movement as well. You know, and what are they doing in biohacking? They're doing nutrition and movement. So you can't outthink a bad diet. So you can't eat unless you're Saint Germain and you can alkalize and somehow transmute candy bars into avocados or something. You know, it's not going to happen. So what happens is we know that each of these brain waves are like Wi-Fi networks. When gamma, which if you talked to me 20 years ago, I said, don't mess with gamma, that's a psychotic. Because we didn't know a lot about it. Now we know when you activate gamma is like the bass drum of the band. It keeps the whole brain together. When we age, that's the brain wave that dysregulates. That's why we now have 50 sessions or more in gamma. So when we're doing the dementia study, we can get people doing gamma. Once that's going, the whole brain regulates itself. Gamma and theta, each of these brain waves also trigger something called neurotransmitters, which you've probably heard about. You've probably heard that we have a mental health problem in the world today. We have a physiological problem in the world today, not a mental health problem.
That's right.
So when you think about your physiology affects your psychology and vice versa. We all know people that were very negative, they started working out, eating healthy, and they became positive. That's because they work together. Now, if you're doing them both at the same time, you're going to have a synergizing effect that's going to really create that peak performance moments that we want. We want more peak performance moments in our life. That's the main reason, hopefully all of you are here. When you get into beta, beta creates dopamine. Dopamine, when you're in the beta state, your body's overproducing it. That's why all addictions have dopamine. Dopamine never gets a payoff. I don't care what you do, whether it's alcohol, drugs, pornography, whatever it is, you never get a payoff. So it's an adjutant. It will keep making you do it. They've done studies with mice where they've given them the foods that would trigger their dopamine response. They will die rather than do anything else but hit that button to get that dopamine response. Because it never pays you off. So that's the brainwave we need to regulate. That's the beast, if you will, that we need to control, because if we let the beta brain take over, we become like animals. It's all about pleasure. It's all about immediate gratification. Almost every problem in the world today is because of short-term thinking, immediate gratification. Long-term thinking is the key to results. I always tell people, if you can procrastinate, you can achieve any goal you want. Right? Just put off doing all that negative shit and do the positive stuff. The problem is people put off doing all the good stuff and they do all the negative stuff. There's no negative behaviors. There's only negative actions that people take with those behaviors. So you just got to figure out, what are you doing consistently that's getting you a result, or what are you doing consistently that's getting you a negative result, and start changing it. But you got to change the brainwave. When you think about frequencies, these are frequencies. Think of, what do you frequently see? That's your frequency. You will see the frequency of life, whatever you're projecting. When you get into alpha, you're going to create acetylcholine. When I was in India at Ames Bhopal, when I first took a guru up on stage and I mirrored his brainwave. We measured his brainwave. I took somebody who never meditated. Within 10 minutes, they had the same brainwave. They said, how did you do that? And Dr. Varun, who's now one of our research guys, he says, you're cheating. That guru meditated for 25 years. You took somebody up here that never meditated. I said, Varun, have you ever meditated to a candle? He said, yeah, all the time. I said, well, you're cheating. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, a candle flickers at 10 hertz frequency. Every fire does. That's why if you've ever been mesmerized by a fire, like a campfire, and you just sit there and watch it, the mirror neurons in your brain start to create acetylcholine. You love it. The ocean, water, rivers, they all resonate at 10 hertz frequency. That's why when we were out in nature all the time, we were getting all these different brainwave frequencies. We'd walk to the water, we'd get that frequency response. And I said, have you ever wondered why the gurus go to the Himalayas to meditate? He goes, yeah, to get away from people. I said, no, they're cheating. He said, what do you mean? I said, that mountain resonates at 7.8 hertz frequency. So they're sitting in a field that's generating theta and gamma.
Very cool.
In the body, all the mirror neurons in the body are resonating to that. If you're there long enough, you're going to have the experience, because it comes from inside out. It's not outside in. The cells of the body start to vibrate and resonate, and then it opens you up to what's there. And you are not what you think you are. You're far greater, way more than you think you are. And so what it does, now this one activates something called GABA. This one activates GABA. Does anybody know what GABA does? GABA is the precursor to DMT. So if you want to have a spiritual experience, you can either go do DMT or you can produce your own. You do it every day anyway, so why not just up it? That's what breath work does. If you've ever done breath work and you do a lot of the breath holds and the rapid breathing, you're activating your own body's DMT network. It's in every cell of your body. You're designed to do that, because we all have a propensity to get out of this place. In fact, they've done study after study. Everybody wants to get high. But really, getting high is not getting high. It's getting balanced. It's getting back to balance. It's not getting like destroying ourselves. That's why my dad could do the meditation and got help, because he realized that's what I was trying to get to, not destroying my family and everything like that. Now, Delta, there's no programming that happens in Delta, and I love it when I see online people are trying to train people in Delta. Delta is not you. Delta is when your body goes into a state of abeyance, and your unconscious takes over and heals your body. There's no learning that happens there, no recall that happens there. Your body's there doing its rest. You're somewhere else. They did a study on people, if you've seen the movie Coma, where they're hanging from the wires, that was actually a study they did. And what happens when you die? You lose 3/4 of an ounce, is what they figured. You're that 3/4 of an ounce. So that's where that is, we don't know. Because if you ever try to pick somebody up when they're passed out on the couch, you can only move them. And then when they come back, there's a difference there. The life energy's there. When you go to sleep at night and you go through those deep sleep cycles and you get in that deep delta sleep that you need that actually detoxes the brain, you actually go offline. You get into sleep paralysis. If you woke up and you couldn't move during sleep, you were in one of those sleep cycles. They only last nanoseconds. But in that world, there's no time. So they can seem like it lasts forever.
What about people who are wide awake in Delta?
Yeah, they're waking up in their sleep paralysis. Yeah, that happens.
I mean, like all day.
Well, most of the people we measure are over 90% Delta while they're walking around all day long. That's inflammation.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, their brain is trying to tell them to go to sleep. You need to stop eating so much junk, stop working your body so hard, go to sleep, because sleep is the answer. But they don't want to do that. So what they do, they get coffee, tea, chocolate, and every other stimulant, and they just keep pushing because we're Americans or whatever. We want to achieve our goals. You know, that's the way it works in our body. Remember, every 1 minute of exertion, 2 minutes of recovery. Most people don't do that. That's the real secret to recovery.
1 to 2 ratio.
Yeah. So if you do a 20-minute workout, you need to figure out how to do 40 minutes during the day of recovery. High intensity now I'm talking about. You know, when you need that high intensity, then you need the recovery.
So what if you run an ultramarathon for 200 miles?
Yeah.
How much recovery?
Nobody does that. There's no lion that's going to chase you for 200 miles. So you're just choosing to do that. You know, I would have you check. No, I'm just kidding. I ran track, so I wonder why I did that too in college. But it's like there's certain things. Obviously, you've got to eat well, you've got to sleep well, you've got to do a lot to recover. But no, there's a reason why distance runners have such malnutrition when they stop running. They burned up all the stores of energy. And our body's designed to recycle energy. Like you can't, I don't care how much gamma you produce today, you need gamma tomorrow. It's never going to stop. So you probably remember the human genome experiment, right? They said, hey, we mapped the human genome. And then they said, oh, well, 99% of who you are is junk, right? You heard that? Well, in 2018, they figured out that 99% is not junk anymore. It's actually changing. It's epigenetics. So every 40 seconds, those 99%, now they can map it. It's changing so quickly they couldn't map it in 2003. So that's the part, that's why you're not your DNA. You're not your mom and dad.
Very good.
So as you change that, you change your food, you're changing your DNA. You change your friends, you change your DNA. If you're hanging around 5 alcoholics, I'm going to tell you you're going to be the 6th. You know, that's the way it's going to work. You know, so you want to hang with the people you hang around with is really important in things like that.
And nurture.
Yep. Yes. Yep. When we think about light therapy, we know light expression, all the light therapy. When somebody says, why do we have lights in the ears? And for those who were here, I talked about it earlier. All the blood in your body passes through your ears every 3 to 5 minutes. So if I'm going to blood dope, that's one of the best places to do it. So I'm going to put that light energy in there. The hemoglobin is going to absorb that light energy, and it's frequency based. So in our ear lights, it's actually changing every 2 minutes to a different Noget frequency. And that frequency is then tuning up the body. If those 7 frequencies are in tune, you are healthy. If one of those 7 frequencies are out of tune, you're going to have an illness. It's just a matter of fact. And that's what auricular therapy is based on, as well as acupuncture and all of those things. So when it goes through here, we can actually map the meridians and show you how they open up and don't. What's happened since COVID is the heart meridian's being assaulted. I mean, it's being shut down because your heart has 40,000 neutrino cells. That's the number one brain. It talks to the body twice as much as any other organ. So your heart brain is the one that we need to tune up. And that's what we need to get that light into that area. So we tune up the brain, we do it through the ears. The blood also from the ears goes into the brain first because it regulates the temperature of the brain. So if we want to get energy in, it's going to go in, the light energy is going to find a cell that's dying, they call it apoptosis. The minute that finds that cell, if we can get it before it dies, it's going to attract that light energy. And it's going to start that cell up again. It's going to start the Krebs cycle, and it's going to come back to life. And that happens every day. Now, we don't keep up with all of them because we're changing at a rate of about 50 million cells per second. But we want to keep the brain as active as possible because that controls everything else. When you think about binaural beats, isochronic tones, and brain function, we know that sound, before we had light, we had sound therapy before we had LED light therapy. And you've probably been to a party before when somebody said, hey, let's go to the party. You go, I don't really want to go, but you went. And then they started playing all your music from the high school years. And you started tapping your toes. You had energy because the cells, there's something called a chromophore on the cells. It's absorbing that light energy and sound energy. And when that cell fills up, unlike people that buy storage units and put all their stuff in it, what our cells do is it says, I got all this energy. Why don't you have some? It's called photobiomodulation. It transfers that energy to the next cell, then the next cell. Pretty soon the whole body's full. When the body's full, it's got to move. It can't sit there. So the sounds you choose are really important. Now, what we know about sound therapy is that if we can play the right sound frequency, you actually are smarter. We prove just by playing the sound in the background. So our body is always responding to what's going on. So if we can, that's why they call it the Mozart effect. When you play Baroque classical music, when you study, you're just smarter. That's just the way it works. So we use that principle to base everything that we do. And it's all off. That's why if you ever listen to my sessions, not on a in a stereo setting, but without earphones, they sound weird because they're off center. Because we're always teaching the brain. We're teaching, but when you hear it through earphones, it sounds like it's right. But when you hear it outside in the room, it isn't, because we're activating different regions of the brain. And when you're hearing in a stereo setting, you'll hear different sounds happening around, because we're triggering different activities in the brain when we're doing it.
Is that a standardized sound across the community, or is it all personalized based off of the state that the person's in at that given moment?
Well, I'm sure that it's personalized to them, but ours are standard because it's an app.
Sure.
But I'm sure if you could do it personally, when we first started Light and Sound, we had a device called the Sills, which I would measure blood flow, circulation, heart rate, hand temperature, and then I would change the frequencies. That was very laborious, believe me. I could only see one person at a time. So, but you could get better results, obviously, because you're working with a client that had a problem. But what we found was this is like going to the gym and doing the circuit training, if you will.
Sure.
You're gonna get a result. There's always a better way, I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah. When you think about spoken word, some people say, I don't listen to the spoken word. I said, well, you're making a mistake. Your best thinking brought you here. Congratulations. Your best thinking is going to get you out of here. Because if you still have an issue and you're in this room, you probably need to upgrade. You know, we didn't get to choose our operating system when we were born. Mom, dad, brothers and sisters, preachers and teachers built our operating system. If you don't change that operating system, you're going to be doomed to live it out. But we know that Bruce Lipton is another person we used to bring out to Quantum University all the time. And he talks about how the words can change up to 3,200 gene expressions. Remember when we talked at the very beginning about if you look at life as a series of threats, you're downregulating your nervous system. When you think of it as a challenge, your body rises to the occasion. So what we say to ourselves is really important. And if you don't edit the tape loop, the 5,000 words that run in your mind all day long, that boot up every morning when you get up, then you don't even know what's happening to you. 25% of the time you go unconscious. So who's driving then? And when you got across town, you go, I don't remember if I made it through that stoplight or whatever. Well, your subconscious took over. Or you're watching a movie and somebody says, hey, and finally you snap out of it and you go, where were you? Oh, I was here watching the movie. I didn't even know you were talking to me. It's because our brain, we can't keep up with everything we're being exposed to. So the brain has to take a vacation every once in a while. And they say about 25% of the time we're not there. Our conscious mind goes into a state of abeyance. This is a study I love to show because people ask, well, what if you do this brainwave entrainment? How long does it last? This is a study we did in Gaylord, Michigan with concussions. Every student at the school that had a concussion that year went through this protocol. Half of them didn't get BrainTap at the end of their training. Everybody got treatment because they all had concussions, so we couldn't not treat somebody. But what happened was a year later, we went back. A year later, they didn't do any brainwave entrainment for a year. The group that did BrainTap were 30 to 70% better a year later.
Wow.
Because the sooner you can get the help to your brain, the better. So when somebody asks me, how do I know if I need BrainTap? I go, how do you know when you're going to have a heart attack? Does anybody know what the first thing that happens when you have a heart attack? Yeah, you die. So, you know, everybody needs it. Richard Bandler was funny when we used to do a lot of work with him, and he said, anybody with a brain would have one. Because you have to tune it up. Unless you have a better piece of equipment, which I don't know of on the planet, you need a BrainTap. So,
With the concussion stuff, so years after
Yep.
concussion,
Yep.
there's I would assume, a massive improvement.
yeah. Now, if they had the BrainTap, it would have been better because you can keep upregulating it. But what happens is the sooner to the insult you do the work, the better, is what we're trying to prove. You know, don't wait. You know, like some people say, well, I don't need it yet because I don't have Alzheimer's yet. Well, there's a point of no return. You know, when you're building a house, you can't let it just dilapidate. And a lot of people are trying to paint their home when it's on fire. You know, we got to get the inflammation down and, you know, rebuild while it's still workable, you know, in the times now to do those things. So every neurological factor, and all these studies are available to you online. So this is a study we just finished because nurses, my family was a group of nurses. My grandma used to run a hospital. She was sent home to die in the 70s. She lived to be 93. She was on 27 different pharmaceuticals. And they said, you're toxic, you're going to die. Sent her home, took her off all her pharmaceuticals. She lived for 30 more years. So we got into health food. When I graduated high school, I was going to replace Yul Gibbons in the Grape Nuts commercials, for those who remember him. You know, because it was weird in Michigan that we were eating healthy. But there was a Seventh-day Adventist hospital there, so we ate the way the Seventh-day Adventists did, even though we were Catholic. You know, because they had healthy food. But in this case, what we showed is all those improvements by doing one 20-minute session 3 times a week. So it doesn't have to happen every day. The reason that we chose nurses is they work swing shifts, their sleep is all off, and we showed how you can improve their sleep no matter what time they go to sleep, if they have to sleep in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening. It's just a matter of teaching the brain what to do at those different times. Now, for those that haven't done BrainTap, this is a virtual tour. So you put that on, your eyes are closed. It's not working with the eyes open, it's working with the cranial nerve too, because we're really trying to just trigger the brain. If you don't meditate with light like this, like BrainTap, 30% of your brain is going to go to sleep when you meditate. So you're not even activating the neurocircuitry. You have to do a lot of breath work to stay awake. Now, breath work can do it. We just, actually last year, I was Researcher of the Year in India because we proved pranayama breathing could do the same thing as BrainTap. The only difference was you had to do pranayama breathing 3 times a day for a half hour. BrainTap you only had to do for 10 minutes. So we're teaching them how ancient traditions and modern technology can work together. So when you think about emotions driving behavior, you can be a pessimist, you know, it's always raining out there, or you can be an optimist. We believe you should be an optimist because it upregulates your nervous system. So as we work with those. So I'm just going to run you through, this is why somebody said they didn't bring their equipment here. This is me leaving New Bern. I'm at 864 units of energy power, which we can measure. Green is parasympathetic, so I'm not nervous about getting on the airplane. I'm 113. This is how fast my nervous system regulates. And anything below 145 is good. When I fly to California from New Bern, I knocked my energy down almost 8,000 points just by flying in an airplane. I'm not stressed. I fly 100 times a year. I didn't even know it happened to me. I was surprised when I saw this myself. My regulating system went to 288. That means I can't regulate. If I get stressed, I'm going to stay stressed. I can't get out of it. You know, like you get in a bad mood and you can't get out of the bad mood. I do my BrainTap session, back up. What I tell people is everyone's going to get hit. Like Mike Tyson says, what are you going to do? What are you going to handle that? This is the stress. I was at 71. I was in the good cycle. I went all the way up to 180 just by flying in an airplane. Every hour in an airplane is like getting an X-ray. So every cell of your body is responding to that. Do my BrainTap, I'm back. My brain's at 100%. It's usually 100%. If I'm home, I'm 100% across the board because I'm doing everything. You came to my house at 4:30 in the morning, you're up with me, you're doing about 2.5 hours of biohacking. You know, because I'm age 62. I want to be around with my grandkids. I don't want to be some old guy that's sitting in a wheelchair or something like that. So, but I do my flight, I'm down to 40.
How long is it?
It was from New Bern. It was about 6 hours of flying.
What do you use
Do
to
my,
measure that?
what's that?
What do you use?
That's a neurocheck. We have it down at our booth.
Neurocheck?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's a device that, this device is why we won Researcher of the Year in India, because we're proving out all the ancient traditions and what's really happening there. This is my neurotransmitters, 100% in my bank account. I'm reading, I'm thinking I'm having a good time. I'm not even stressed. I'm down to 33. Am I going to treat people really well? No. My metabolism was at 259. I land, I'm at 85. That's what stress does to your metabolism.
Why did you read?
Yeah, whatever it is, I'm not reading it again. So when I land, my metabolism goes right to 549, right back. This is heart rate coherency, 100 down to 32. I'm just showing you this. My age, and these have been validated with telomere studies and all sorts of things. I usually regulate like a 31-year-old. I land, I'm a 53-year-old. That's not good. So I get back, boom, back to 100%.
Is that using BrainTap?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, doing a 20-minute session. So,
Speaking of travel,
yeah.
is BrainTap, is there any issues with TSA or anything?
No,
travel?
no.
No problem.
No, but don't let them try it. I've had 3 people lose their headset to a flight attendant. They don't give it back. We do have a whole program called Sky Blue. So,
Can you use it while you're flying?
yes, yeah. I just did it with India. I did it with, I have a silver jacket that I wear. I lost no energy. Doing a BrainTap every 3 hours to India, 18 hours. I actually landed in India better than I left America. So, but this one I didn't do anything. I didn't do any of my biohacks. I wanted to see what would happen.
What is the silver jacket for?
It blocks the radiation. Yeah. I'm wearing the hood, and it's silver lined. It's like a vampire jacket or something. I said I'll wear it to see what happens, and I wear it now every time. So I'm 63% better than someone my age. I land, I'm still 5% better. So people my age are really screwed up. they wait too long. Then I land on better than 69% better, and everything's back regulating. So all these, I'm just trying to show that this is what happens. So when I talk about recovery, we did the same. This is TBRX, which is Tom Brady's group, and Alex Guerra, and we work with them because they showed and Tom Brady uses BrainTap. So when people said, how did you recover? When you get stressed out, you have to do something at that moment. Don't wait. So he's even been known to use it at halftime. I don't know if he used it during the halftime where he threw 3 interceptions in the first half and threw 4 touchdowns in the second half. But what we did with this group, the Sporting Kansas City, we showed them that if they did a BrainTap before they left the building, they actually left the building better than when they arrived in the morning after 20 minutes of BrainTap. Before that, they weren't using it because they're pro athletes. They don't need this. And sure, they could regulate in 4 hours, but it's even better if they can regulate right away. So after a workout, this is the best time to do it. After anything you do that's stimulating the body, it's a really good time to do that. Now, when we talk about the brain, it's super important. Back in 2015, they're still finding things out about our body. In fact, there's a guy, you might know Mariel Hemingway. She's a good friend of mine. She does a lot with mental health. They have a thing called the stratosphere in California. They're actually using it, and they're finding they're building more lung tissue that has never been seen before because it's using altitude. It's like a CVAC, but it's on steroids. It's a big device that you set in. So they're learning more and more about our bodies evolving. In 2015, they realized we had the glial lymphatic system. Before that, there was not a book on the earth that showed the lymphatic system in the brain. But in physiology, it tells us anywhere there's a blood vessel, there's a lymphatic vessel. But they left the brain out of it because it only activates during level 4 sleep. So if you're not sleeping, you're not detoxing the brain. And if you have toxins in there, it's like taking mitochondria as a fire and you're putting leaves over top of it. So we got to clear the leaves out so the fire can burn again and the brain can operate at its highest level of efficiency. So that's why I said at the very beginning, sleep is the key to what we do. And it's about regulating. Every cell of your body has something called piezo energy. It's building up all day long. All day long it builds, and when you go to sleep, you should release it and relax it. But if we can do that even during the day, when we release that, we get a new morning. That's why those peak performance people had so much more production, because they got more work done in the afternoon than usual. Most people, their efficiency goes down over 25% in the afternoon. They're still working, but they're not getting anything done because the brain isn't operating at the highest level of achievement. So when you think about BrainTap, these are the different, this is all in the headset. All those therapies, and they're all good. You could use any one of those separately. But what I found over the years is if you use them all together in a synergistic way and an algorithm that I've been playing with for 40 years, you get maximum results. And we haven't had a study yet that didn't blow the minds. Right now we have a study going on in Harvard based on the Mediterranean diet, showing that how we can increase the productivity of the Mediterranean diet. Because I think that's one of the better diets for the brain and things like that. It's easy to stay on. So
how do you know what to run and when?
There's outcomes now. You can press outcomes on the app, and you get the outcomes, and it'll select them for you. There's 2,000. You can't go wrong as long as you do something different all the time. If you have a favorite, you're going to notice on the app it's got a little timer next to it. That timer will tell you if you've listened to it in 72 hours. We don't want you to listen to the same session within every 72 hours because we want the nervous system to reset before you listen to it. Then you're going to get that neuroplasticity. You have to challenge the brain. I love when people say, I don't want stress anymore. Well, there's only one time in your life when you don't have stress. Then put you in the ground right after that. Stress is what we need to grow and learn. So that's why a lot of these biohacks, jumping in water is not enjoyable. But the effects afterwards are really enjoyable, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to build capacity, not eliminate the stress. We want the capacity for our brain to do the work. That's my talk today. If you want to come down to the booth and see it, we'll go from there. Thank you.